I'm the product manager and lead AR designer at Apprentice.io. That is a Series A startup based in New Jersey, where we don't just augment reality, we augment human ability. I'll get to that shortly. I was a senior experience designer at RGA, where I was focused on 3D applications and augmented reality campaigns. I also launched RGA University, and with the inaugural course on how to prototype augmented and virtual reality. Worked on a lot of great brands through RGA and through RGA Ventures. I was initially hired for the Nike team until I discovered the applications for three-dimensional experiences. Sometimes I get dressed up like this, not just because it's cool, but because that's what Apprentice applies to. This is where I've lived and worked before RGA, and currently at Apprentice, we are developing biotech and life sciences applications for pharmaceutical manufacturing. So these are highly complex processes that are highly valuable. And enterprise is an area that's largely been forgotten by the majority of technology creators and suppliers. So last year with Apprentice, we launched our first product, and that is telepresence. I felt like we were super smart, but that was the rage last year, right? Telepresence is what all enterprise AR applications were offering. Even TeamViewer, right, that you might know as a remote tool, or remote computer management tool, right? We now have augmented reality on the mobile phone using mobile AR. Last week or a couple weeks ago, I took part in the Adobe Make It Immersive Challenge. 20 creatives from the globe got together and got to preview the new Adobe Aero application. That's a prototyping application for augmented reality experiences. I created this site-specific installation with Wendy Flock, and we augmented Times Square. So in Times Square, instead of just seeing construction, we added these architectural installations that you could walk around or walk through. We added these little people that were jumping around. And it was contextual in that when we got to Times Square, we saw the environment, that there were some chairs, and we said, oh, we'll take this character and allow him to jump off of the chair. So this is how, as designers and creatives, we can begin to envision augmented reality experiences in augmented reality. A little bit about that process. We used Adobe Dimension to apply specific materials. We used Rhino, or Wendy used Rhino to mash models together. And we animated some of the models, and then we placed them in AR. So now to speak about the state of AR. Consumer and mobile augmented reality is kind of nascent, right? I mean, we're anticipating use cases beyond face effects, even though this face effect is really cool. You can see in the Wall Street Journal yesterday or this morning, Santa Club, not my club, but it's on Costco. They're mentioning AI stores or unmanned stores. And unmanned stores are visualized as augmented reality. So this is the cultural understanding of consumer expectations for augmented reality. But while we're still looking for use cases that we can achieve in consumer experiences, enterprise, mobile, and head-mounted display augmented reality is really taking off because there are a lot of use cases. Even though the headset form factor is still evolving, there's needed application. When we speak more about consumer augmented reality, you see some examples. All this is from AWE, or Augmented World Expo. 7-Eleven had an award-winning campaign. It was created by Zapper. And it's great because every time you go back to the campaign and every time you go to a different place of 7-Eleven, the experience is different, right? It changes, it's contextual. And then you have these, say, maybe more advanced concepts that are just concepts. As of right now, Unity's AR performance ads. Tony Parisi mentioned that people found the concept confusing. What is an AR performance ad? But when they made a prototype, it said, when you're playing a game, when someone's playing a game, they'll see an experience, that's an ad, it's in AR, and you can say, see Angry Birds. You can play Angry Birds and then be offered to download that Angry Birds application. And then people think it makes sense. So that's how we see some improvement, right? Whether it's in a consumer campaign that changes every day, or whether it's allowing, as Tony was mentioning, you to download new applications through an augmented reality experience. On my own time, I make some face effects and filters. I'm Hawaiian, so I made this face effect to protect Mauna Kea, the sacred mountain in Hawaii. You can do some fun things. You can place text on the camera, you can place information in three-dimensional space. You can even use particle effects based on, say, hand recognition, right? So we begin to see that there are more applications beyond just placing things in your home, right? And we as consumers and users expect these things that we see in the current media, right? Iron Man or Minority Report, and that's been with us for a decade plus. So while our expectations are high, as consumers in enterprise, we're really able to deliver things. Whether that's Bentley Systems and the opportunities in architecture, engineering, and construction, whether it's automotive or aerospace, like Airbus, where they're looking at part-specific experiences to see if a manufactured part can fit in the plane, or in life sciences at Apprentice. So this is the fidelity of an experience that people are expecting and the usefulness of an experience. While we still see and hope for these HoloLens-esque experiences that are three-dimensional, the majority of head-mounted displays or digital eyewear come in the form of smart glasses. Those are often monocular that show information to one eye, or if they're binocular show information to two eyes, it's just flat information, right? It doesn't have a contextual understanding of your space. And at Apprentice, we use those with our life sciences clients. They're very durable, and it's a lot of voice interface. We also have a HoloLens application. So even though the form factor is not finally agreed upon, there are more glasses debuting, right? Whether those are just the smart glasses, this is a consumer product here, but the majority of applications are in enterprise, or whether they're these 3D slam glasses. The smart glasses, as mentioned, will show flat information, right? Like it could show the camera feed from a drone. That'll be superimposed on your view at a distance away. It looks like it's a distance away. And that allows you to use the edge of the screen. Like you can see your altitude, or you can see your compass on the edges of your screen, right? Because it's smart glasses. When you get to, say, binocular glasses, like these Lenovo glasses, there is no edge to your vision, right? So that's why these two-dimensional form factors for designing don't really serve us very well when we're moving to three-dimensional experiences. And naturally, many of us have seen the HoloLens too, and are anticipating these kind of devices, and so wondering, how do we design for them? How do we create for them, right? So this is where tools come in, right? Tools and a software pipeline. The usual question is, what tool do I use, right? And if you have experience with creatives, the answer we commonly give is not just tools and pipeline, but it's that it depends, right? It depends what you're trying to achieve, it depends on how much time you have, so we often don't like to answer that question. But maybe this isn't useful time. So I'll give you a preview of the first binocular 3D slam 3D glasses experience I ever made. A simple Magic Leap example. So here at RGA with the Magic Leap, built something to the Magic Leap. I didn't see it, looking all around, and then I noticed it's above me. It's 1.6 meters in the air, because when I started the Magic Leap, it recognized the table as the ground surface, right? And at RGA, we always started every first prototype or first new thing with a red cube. So I made that in Unity and the Magic Leap emulator, right? So these are tools that you can use. Like, how do you create something if you don't have these tools, or if you don't know how to use these tools? How do you create something if you don't have the hardware, right? What are you going to do if you don't have a device to get started? So that's where we get into the design and the development process. And here's the process in practice. For the Adobe Make It Immersive challenge or experience, here's this pipeline or series of pipes, whether it's asset creation for new models or whether it's how you vectorize type, how you put type in augmented reality as three-dimensional, or how you take existing models and animate them. You can see the state of AR in the tool set is not fully evolved yet. That's why we're using various programs to achieve pretty simple things. But Adobe Aero's in beta, and it has limited interaction capabilities. So what would you use to see something or create something that could allude to a head-mounted display? Here is my design process. And that goes from naturally understanding, right, through research, framing, right, to understand the flow, designing the 2D UI, recreating the context physically, designing your three-dimensional elements, enacting the scenario out, building a three-dimensional scene, and building a three-dimensional scene, viewing it in mobile AR, and then simulating it in a head-mounted display before developing it. Does that make much sense to anybody? A little bit. I see a couple nods. I think there's a better way to illustrate this, so I'll jump over to my other device. The important thing about creating for augmented reality is you have to be in augmented reality, right? So here's just an overview of my design process. And this is created without needing to use a game engine. It's created without needing to know how to 3D model. The way I'll start is you research, right? So say we're going into a new, thank you. So QuickTime doesn't, right? But say we're going to a new facility, right? And that might be Amazon ask, how do we get people to identify the right package and put that in the cart quicker, right? The physical fulfillment, they call it picking and packing. That's a competency. So we'll go into that place or that environment, we'll look at the human actions that people do, we'll look at the physical environment that people are in and observe their behavior. That's something a lot of us are probably very familiar with. Next, we redefine that flow, right? Maybe map out the existing flow, map out a better flow. And do those sketches look familiar? So once we agree on a flow, we can start to create the 2D UI, right? It's probably a series of rectangles that we make inside another couple of rectangles. Then we build out the three-dimensional experience, right? We mock up the physical place, right? You can use blue foam to do that. You can use foam. So there's me lifting some things together. And what you want to do is recreate the environment for the context and the scenarios that they're going to use your application in. Do they have to walk up steps? Do they have to wear protective equipment? Then we can mock up the 3D UI elements. And those are probably a lot of the existing two-dimensional UI elements, but brought to life with one additional dimension. There are even free tools you can use to take your existing two-dimensional elements and make them three-dimensional. Then we try our scenario. We try our new flow in the new environment, right? Then we start to build these scenes in 3D. I view it as your spatial information architecture. So what I'm building there is what we're seeing here. Then try it in mobile augmented reality, like I'm doing right now, right? Does this experience make sense spatially? Then try it in a head-mounted display, right? Try it in your mocked-up physical environment before you build to the head-mounted display. And if I were to edit this process, it would be to get into AR earlier. It's to move augmented reality up earlier. Because if you're designing just a normal two-dimensional application, you don't wait this late to see what it looks like on a phone, right, or on an iPad. Right? You do that if you're a designer very early, even if it's just to check the field. Really, this is just spatial information architecture for the design process. How you can take this to the next level in a head-mounted display using these existing free tools. And this is built in Torch, by the way. So this is free on the Apple App Store or iOS App Store. You make your information architecture. You look at your experience from a second person view, and then QuickTime's not going to rotate, but I would rotate to see what can you see. If you rotate, you have a viewport that is more similar to a head-mounted display, right? You're probably not going to see, you're probably not going to see this belt or this tool set here if you're in a head-mounted display, right? Your viewport is cropped up a little here and cropped up a little here. But you can see that you're supposed to pick up item 1. You can tap OK. You can go to that destination. That destination by the water cooler might change the information displays as you move. And that is just a little quick overview on how I design and create for head-mounted displays that are, to be specific, 3-dimensional. And that, yes, saves you time and money because you don't burn a lot of cycles needing to build, right? You don't burn a lot of hours on multiple builds. So a couple quick takeaways. Design and share from that that second person view, right? Design and share from that first person view as well. So you can see a better view of what that binocular vision might be. Find an animated model. This really helps. Whether you download an existing model, whether you scan yourself, whether you scan the people that you're creating for, or if you just use something like Zepecha to just show different poses, right? Is a higher fidelity method of storyboarding. But what's important about these things being 3-dimensional is that you can continue to use these assets for this experience. Place them on a cyclorama. Make your information architecture spatial. So I'll share this with you because this totally glitched out. But in Unity, we place all of our scenes across space. So we have an understanding of what that experience is like from both a first and second person view. And then bring it into AR. Lastly, try it in a head-mounted display as well, right? And then replicate the environment, whether you scan the environment or rebuild portions of it. That way you can replicate the process better. So that's just a little bit about my process, and I'll be teaching a master's class at our lab later next month, September 21st and 22nd. So if you're interested, give us a shout. Thanks.